So Suspiria is it's a remake of the 1977 kind of cult film. A lot of people love the classic Argento film, classic Giallo type stuff. But this new version, much like David Gordon Green's Halloween from a few weeks ago, this film is very much faithful to its predecessor. And can we just appreciate that for the fact that we live in an age where horror films have reached such a high level that we can do these kind of like classic throwback films or sequels or whatever, or reimagines, whatever you want to call them, and they can actually be faithful. They can actually get stuff right, and that's exactly what Suspiria does. This version gets this kind of like weird, disorienting, dark magic, occult, satanic type of horror right. It gets it right here. Now the film is directed by I'm gonna see if I can read off his name here because I don't want to mess it up here. It's a pretty long name. Let's see. It's directed by Luca Guadagnino, who last year he directed a film called Call Me by Your Name, which was kind of it was a kind of a inviting, kind of warm type of drama, kind of like that, not quite like a feel good drama, but the type of drama you like getting wrapped up in. Suspiria is pretty much the exact opposite. Suspiria is disorienting. It's uncomfortable. It's gruesome at times. It's uncomfortable at times. It's awkward at times. It's beautifully and darkly shot. It is very close to being some kind of masterpiece here. So if you're not familiar with the story, it takes place in 1977 Berlin, where the nation is already, it's going through some crazy crap right now. I mean, the country's going through some crazy crap, but inside this girls' dance academy is this secret coven of witches, and they're secretly training these girls that come into their school to be witches. And the latest addition is Susie Bannion, who's played here by Dakota Johnson. She sticks out as the most obvious because she's got the red hair and the long braids. So you can't miss her. You can't miss her when she comes in here. And she comes into this school, and immediately we know something is up with the school. Like, it always seems like a little bit darkly lit. Like the halls are huge, and there barely seems to be anyone in there. When you do see some of the staff, they're all female, and they're all kind of like scurrying back and forth very quickly between rooms. They're all very strict, all very harsh. And the girls seem to be a little bit hush-hush about what's going on in the school. They're a little bit open, but they're not as open with the teachers. But the teachers are going to come to Susie because Tilda Swinton actually plays Madame Blanc, one of the dance teachers, and she takes a great interest in Susie. She's like, oh, she could be the one. She could be like the next witch, and so she starts training her to kind of like seemingly to push her body to do more advanced types of dance for a lot of their performances. But in actuality, she's kind of training her to become a witch because she's kind of giving her these powers as she goes along. And as she gets these powers, we start seeing more crazy crap going on around the secret halls of the dance academy. We start seeing there's a secret dungeon below. There's a mirror dance hall where unlucky people who wander in get tortured, and you kind of see a little bit in the trailer there. But one of the students unfortunately wanders down there, like she knows something's up, like she's got to escape, she's got to get out of there. Once she gets down there, like some dark magic comes over her and her body starts contorting, and like her jaw gets dislocated, her bones twist, her body juts out, she starts getting weird kind of like outbreaks on her skin, and bones and muscles all contorting. It's nasty stuff, but kind of what you expect from this type of film. So yeah, it kind of just keeps building from there, where it kind of like builds up the suspense little by little. Sometimes it becomes disorienting when it goes between dream sequences and scenes where there doesn't seem to be much happening, where like they're just having dinner at a restaurant. And they also address kind of like the politics of what's going outside. There's revolutionaries that are fighting. They also address that in the background. There's also a subplot involving a psychologist who kind of takes a great interest in the school, thinking like maybe something's wrong there. I think I should take a peek in there. And then there's some great dance performances that they do, very very freaky dance performances that they do about midway through here. And then eventually you get to the climax, which is just a straight up crazy, insane, satanic cult situation with probably some of the most grotesque imagery I've seen all year. Now, there's an amazing cast here. You got Chloe Grace Moretz. You've got you got Angela Winkler, you got Mia Goth. They're all doing great performances here. Like both the women who are like the girl dancers in the troupe and the older witches of the coven. They all give fantastic performances here. I love the camera work here is amazing. I love how the camera will follow in certain scenes, and other times it will kind of like do quick editing to enforce like the panic of the situation. And it's just it's so great to watch a film like this that's so disorienting and uncomfortable at times. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but yeah, because they do go for the gore and the blood, and there's a lot of like very nasty and dark scenes. And other times it's just awkward conversations. Like at one point, Tilda Swinton and Dakota Johnson, they will have a very bizarre conversation. It's very brief, but it's very uncomfortable about having sex with animals. And there's another one, I think, with the psychologist, where one of the girls who escapes admits to something about how like the witches are gonna like eat her vagina for breakfast or something like that. It's it's very weird. But then again, this is Suspiria, and it's a pretty damn weird film. It goes out of its way to make you uncomfortable, to enforce like a state of panic. Tom York's soundtrack here also does a great job of like kind of also enforcing a little bit of like the sadness and the melancholy of the situation while still feeling sinister and dark at times. It works. It gets you into that mindset of like a film that scares you on more than just like the base level of jump scares or someone getting like their throat slashed or something like that. It's way scarier on this level. That being said, I do love the film. I know it's probably going to be polarizing to a lot of people for going out of its way to be, overly, a little bit overly ambitious with its material, which is fine by me. But there are a few little nicks here and there that kind of held it a little bit back from being a masterpiece for me. One of them is that the German psychologist here is they made like a big deal about this. Like the German psychologist is actually played by a woman. So there's a female actress playing this elderly gentleman couple. This elderly gentleman rather. And they kind of like make it a mystery, like, oh, which actress could it be? But I think once you first see this character and you first hear the character speak, it becomes pretty obvious who this mystery actress is, who this mysterious actress is. It becomes very obvious the moment you hear the psychologist talk. I also think like some of the editing doesn't work too well, like with Susie's dream sequence. They do a lot of like quick cutting to various scenes of like like blood and scenes from inside her household and heavy breathing and stuff like that. I think that gets a little bit too avant-garde, and it doesn't quite work for me. But I do appreciate that the film is at least trying out all these different aspects of trying to weave this kind of very uncomfortable horror film, where it's very much like a female-centric film. Like all the women inside the academy, they're either in power or they're taken advantage of by the power. So, to the point that when we actually do have male characters that get involved in here, including the psychologist, they pretty much can't do anything. They're either like helpless, they quickly succumb to the spells, and they just can't do anything. So it's entirely a female-centric story from that point. So if you're looking for a good female, like kind of like a female-centric horror film, this is definitely up there. Along the kind of like the same lines as as Halloween, So yeah, I would definitely recommend. Like the film came out last night on Halloween in a few places. It's going to be expanding this weekend. This is, and I got to mention this though. Like I do recommend this film. I do love it. It is a horror film that does deeply scare me. And it is amazing to watch at times. Just the soundtrack, the cinematography, the acting on display here. It's all great. But I got to put like kind of like a little bit of a footnote here. It's not for the squeamish. It's not for like the one person who's like, oh, I saw a horror movie when I was a kid, and I don't think any of these horror movies scare me. Suspiria will scare you, but in more ways than one, and it's definitely not for the squeamish, because there's a lot of grotesque stuff here, including not just like the gore, but also like there's an older witch here who appears kind of like elderly and naked, and she's got like cancerous growths all over her body. She's very disgusting looking. So yeah, not for the squeamish. So I will say this: if you're kind of a bit of a horror buff and you're seeking something that's a little bit that's way more scary than the standard kind of like jump scare haunted house slasher horror affair, Suspiria is definitely up there. I'd say if you're willing to take a chance at something that's more weird, that's more chilling, that's more gory. It's not just gore porn. A lot of people are gonna think, oh, it's because there's gore in it, it's gore porn. No, it's actually there's a lot more that gets weaved here before we get to the gruesome money shots. And so for that, I actually adore the film. I think it's I honestly I want to see this film again because I might change my mind if it's a masterpiece. So I'm hoping to see this again real soon. So for Luca, let me pronounce this correctly. For Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria, 4 out of 5.